Good evening. The rain had stopped over London just before dawn, leaving the grounds of Buckingham Palace glistening beneath pale morning light. But inside the palace walls, nobody was paying attention to the weather, because something extraordinary had happened overnight. Something so emotional, so unexpected, that even longtime royal staff were reportedly left stunned. According to palace whispers spreading rapidly through royal corridors, Prince William had privately revealed the results of a long-discussed DNA verification involving Princess Lilibet of Sussex. And the reaction inside the royal family? Tears, relief, joy. For years, speculation, rumors, conspiracy theories, and cruel online gossip had surrounded Harry and Meghan's children, especially little Lilibet. Now, according to explosive palace chatter, William himself had finally stepped forward to shut the noise down once and for all. And what followed reportedly changed the atmosphere inside the monarchy overnight. Inside a private drawing room at Windsor Castle, King Charles III sat silently holding a small framed photograph. Lilibet, smiling brightly beside her older brother, Prince Archie of Sussex. The king's eyes reportedly filled with emotion as senior family members gathered nearby in stunned silence, because after years of tension, this moment somehow felt bigger than scandal, bigger than interviews, bigger than royal conflict. It felt personal, deeply personal. An insider later whispered, "It was the first time in a very long time that the family stopped fighting long enough to simply feel like a family again." And at the center of it all stood William, calm, emotional, determined. The story reportedly began several weeks earlier, after renewed online speculation about Harry and Meghan's children exploded across social media once again. Wild theories, cruel accusations, constant rumors questioning Lilibet's identity and connection to the royal family. Most palace officials wanted to ignore it publicly, as they always had. But according to insiders, William had grown increasingly disturbed watching the situation spiral further, especially because children were involved. He thought it had crossed a line, one source claimed. For years, William and Prince Harry had barely managed a functional relationship. Some days there was silence, some days resentment, some days complete emotional distance. But despite everything, William reportedly could not tolerate seeing his niece dragged into public conspiracy theories, especially after remembering how media cruelty once devastated his own mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. That memory haunted him, and according to palace whispers, it pushed him toward an extraordinary private decision. Thousands of miles away in California, Harry sat inside the Montecito home late one evening, staring at documents spread across a table. Medical confirmations, legal certifications, private family records. Across from him, Meghan Markle looked emotionally exhausted. "You don't have to do this," Meghan said quietly. Harry rubbed his face tiredly. "I know." But the pressure had become relentless. Every week brought fresh rumors, fresh attacks, fresh accusations targeting their children. And while Harry had learned to endure criticism himself, Lilibet was different. "She's just a little girl," he whispered painfully. Meghan's eyes filled immediately, because despite all the public narratives surrounding them, moments like this reminded them what mattered most. Their children. Not headlines, not palace politics, not public opinion. Family. Harry finally looked up again. William called. Meghan froze slightly. "What?" "He said he wants to help end this." Silence. Heavy silence. Because after years of public warfare between the brothers, hearing William's name connected to support instead of conflict felt almost unreal. Meghan spoke carefully. "You trust him?" Harry hesitated. That hesitation carried years of pain inside it. "I don't know," he admitted. But somewhere deep down, he wanted to. Back in London, William reportedly arranged a confidential family gathering away from official palace offices. No press, no aides, no cameras, only immediate family. According to insiders, the atmosphere before the meeting felt painfully tense. Charles arrived first, then Queen Camilla, then Princess Anne. Eventually, William entered carrying a thin folder. Nobody spoke immediately, because nobody fully understood why William had insisted on the meeting. Then he finally placed the folder onto the table and quietly said, "It's time this stops." Charles reportedly looked confused. "What stops?" William's voice sharpened emotionally. "The attacks on Harry's children." The room fell silent instantly. Anne exchanged a glance with Camilla. William continued, I've seen the reports, the rumors, the online garbage questioning Lilibet's place in this family. Charles exhaled slowly. Yes. William looked directly at his father. She's our family. That sentence reportedly shifted the entire room emotionally, because despite all the divisions surrounding Harry and Meghan, William had just publicly reclaimed Lilibet as part of the family without hesitation. And according to insiders, Charles nearly broke down. William then reportedly revealed that private documentation had fully verified everything already known within official royal channels. There had never been any legitimate question regarding Lilibet's identity or parentage. None. The rumors were false, cruel, baseless, and William wanted the family united internally against them. He was furious that nobody had confronted it emotionally before, one insider later claimed. Not publicly, not through media statements, but privately, as a family. According to sources, William reportedly said something that left several royals visibly emotional. Harry may be angry with us, Meghan may not trust us, but those children should never carry the burden of adult conflict. The room reportedly fell completely silent afterward, because for the first time in years, someone had finally spoken about Harry's children not as controversy, but as innocent family members caught in royal warfare. Charles allegedly wiped tears from his eyes. Camilla looked visibly emotional. Even Anne reportedly softened. And suddenly, years of bitterness felt smaller than one simple truth. Lilibet was still their blood, still Harry's daughter, still Diana's granddaughter, still part of the family story whether the world liked it or not. In California, Harry received the call later that evening. He answered cautiously. Hello? William's voice came through quietly. It's done. Harry frowned slightly. What's done? A pause. Then William answered, The family knows the truth, officially. Completely. Harry sat down slowly, emotion already building in his chest. And? William exhaled heavily. And nobody questioned Lilibet for even 1 second. Silence. Then Harry whispered, Really? William's voice cracked slightly. She's my niece. That sentence reportedly shattered something emotional inside Harry, because after years of anger, distance, interviews, and resentment, he suddenly heard something he hadn't heard from William in a very long time. Love, not political duty, not royal strategy, family love. Harry covered his face briefly as tears filled his eyes. Meghan watched silently nearby. William continued carefully. We should have handled this differently from the start. Harry looked stunned, because apologies inside the royal family rarely came directly, especially from William. But this sounded close, very close. Harry finally whispered, Thank you. And according to Palace Whispers, William became emotional too. The following morning, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace reportedly felt completely different. Lighter, not healed, not perfect, but changed. Staff noticed Charles smiling more. Anne reportedly requested updated photographs of Archie and Lilibet for private family collections. Even palace aides privately admitted the emotional tone surrounding Harry's family had softened dramatically overnight. One insider described it this way. For years, everyone focused on division. This was the first moment that reminded them they still belonged to one another. And perhaps the most emotional moment came later that afternoon. Charles reportedly stood alone inside a private sitting room, looking at a photograph of Harry holding baby Lilibet. A palace aide quietly entered. Your Majesty? Charles didn't look away from the photo. She has Diana's eyes, he whispered. The aide reportedly froze emotionally. Because in that moment, the king wasn't thinking about headlines, or public relations, or royal damage control. He was simply a grandfather looking at his granddaughter and feeling the weight of lost time. Meanwhile, Meghan remained cautious even after Harry shared details of William's actions. You really believe this changes things? She asked softly. Harry sat quietly for several moments before answering. No, he admitted honestly. Then he smiled faintly. But maybe it changes something. Meghan studied him carefully. Years of mistrust still existed. Pain still existed. But for the first time in a long time, hope existed too. And that frightened her almost as much as the conflict once had. Because hope meant vulnerability. Hope meant risking disappointment again. Still, when Harry showed her the message William had sent afterward, she deserves peace, not rumors. Even Meghan reportedly became emotional, because regardless of everything that happened between them, William had defended her daughter. Publicly or privately, that mattered. Deeply. By evening, royal insiders across Britain were already describing the situation as one of the most emotional internal family moments in years. Not because legal documents changed anything, but because the emotional response inside the royal family revealed something surprising. Despite all the warfare, despite all the interviews, despite all the bitterness, the bond had never fully disappeared. It had only been buried beneath pain. And according to one final palace source, the most heartbreaking moment happened after everyone else left the Windsor meeting. William reportedly remained behind alone for several minutes, staring silently at one photograph on the table. Harry holding Lilibet beside an image of Diana holding young William years earlier. The similarities reportedly struck him instantly, not physically. Emotionally, a protective father. A child surrounded by public attention. A family trapped beneath global scrutiny. And in that moment, insiders claim William quietly said something almost nobody heard. We can't let history destroy another generation. Whether those words were real or palace legend hardly mattered anymore, because across Britain and beyond, one emotional truth suddenly overshadowed every royal headline. For one brief moment, the House of Windsor stopped fighting long enough to remember they were still family. The calm inside Buckingham Palace didn't last long. Not in a place where history and emotion are constantly pulling in opposite directions. By the next morning, the same corridors that had briefly felt lighter were once again filled with tension. This time quieter, more cautious, like everyone was afraid that even speaking too loudly might break whatever fragile shift had just occurred. Because while the emotional moment involving Lilibet had softened hearts inside the family, it had also opened a new question no one wanted to ask out loud. What happens next? Inside a private office, King Charles III sat reviewing overnight briefings. The emotional tone from the previous day had not erased the political reality of the situation. One document in particular kept drawing his attention. Media speculation about internal confirmation regarding Lilibet's status. Charles exhaled slowly. "This is getting away from us again," he muttered. Across the room, a senior aide shifted uncomfortably. "Your Majesty, the issue isn't the confirmation itself. It's how it's being interpreted publicly." Charles looked up. "Explain." The aide hesitated. "Some outlets are suggesting the palace has been forced into a defensive position because of Prince William's involvement." That name again. William. Charles pinched the bridge of his nose. His eldest son had acted out of emotion, but emotion inside the monarchy rarely stayed contained. It spread, and now it was spreading fast. At Windsor, William stood by a window overlooking the gardens, staring at nothing in particular. Prince William had not slept much, not because he regretted what he said, but because he knew what came next. Footsteps approached behind him. It was Anne. Princess Anne didn't waste time with greetings. "You've caused a shift," she said simply. William didn't turn. "I know." Anne stepped beside him. "Intentional?" A pause. "No." That honesty mattered to her. Anne folded her arms. "The problem with emotional decisions," she said carefully, "is that they rarely stay emotional." William finally looked at her. It had to be said. Anne nodded slowly. "No argument from me?" That surprised him slightly, she continued. "But now it becomes expectation." William understood immediately. Expectation from the public, from the press, from Harry, from Meghan, even from himself. Across the ocean in Montecito, the mood was far less calm. Meghan stood in the kitchen holding her phone while Harry read headlines beside her. Meghan Markle finally broke the silence. "They're spinning this like a royal correction campaign." Harry sighed. "I expected that." "No," Meghan corrected sharply. "They're not just reporting it, they're using it." Harry looked at her. "Using it how?" Meghan turned the phone toward him. Multiple headlines. William steps in as family crisis deepens. Palace confirms internal assurance on Sussex children. Royal unity moment or strategic PR shift? Harry rubbed his face. "It's becoming something bigger than what it was." Meghan's voice tightened. "It always does with them." That line lingered, because it wasn't just frustration, it was experience. Years of feeling like every private moment eventually became public property. Harry placed the phone down carefully. "I spoke to William again this morning." Meghan froze slightly. "You did?" Harry nodded. "He said he doesn't want this turned into a media victory for anyone." Meghan laughed bitterly. Too late. Back in London, Charles convened a second private meeting. This one was different, less emotional, more strategic. Camilla sat beside him. William was present again, as was a senior communications advisor. Charles spoke first. We need to control the narrative before it becomes uncontrollable. William nodded. I agree. The advisor spoke carefully. The difficulty is that public perception is already framing this as a reaction to external pressure. William frowned. External pressure? Yes, the advisor said. Social media discourse, public speculation, renewed scrutiny of the Sussex family. Anne interjected. In other words, noise. The advisor nodded politely. Influential noise. Charles leaned forward. What is the risk if we say nothing? Silence. Then the advisor answered honestly, that silence will be interpreted as confirmation of deeper internal division. William exhaled slowly. So either way, it becomes political. Anne nodded. It already is. Later that day, William requested a private call. Not with advisors, not with officials, with Harry. The line connected after a few rings. Harry, William said. Yeah, Harry replied cautiously. A pause. Then William spoke more softly than usual. This has gotten bigger than I wanted. Harry sighed. Tell me about it. William continued. The media is turning it into a narrative about the family correcting something. Harry looked at Meghan briefly, who listened silently. We didn't ask for that. I know, William said immediately. Another pause. Then William added, and I don't want it. That honesty surprised Harry. You started it, Harry said gently. I spoke, William corrected. There's a difference. Harry didn't argue, because part of him understood that too. William continued, this was never meant to be about press or reaction. It was about stopping something unfair from targeting children. Harry's voice softened slightly. I know that. A long silence followed. Then Harry asked quietly, so what now? William hesitated. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Inside Buckingham Palace, Charles stood alone again that evening. The emotional high of the previous day had faded, replaced by something more complex. Responsibility. Because now the situation had evolved beyond a private family moment. It had become a public narrative war again. And worse, it had dragged the children into it in ways none of them wanted. Camilla entered quietly. You look tired, she said gently. Charles gave a faint smile. I am tired. She stepped closer. This is not going to resolve quickly. Charles nodded slowly. I know. A pause. Then he said something quietly. I thought yesterday would feel like progress. Camilla studied him. And didn't it? Charles looked uncertain. Yes, but progress invites expectation. That was the problem. Once a door opens, even slightly, it rarely stays still. People push it further. In Montecito, Meghan stood alone later that night on the balcony. Harry joined her quietly. Neither spoke for a moment. The ocean below was calm again, deceptively calm. Finally, Meghan said, I don't trust how quickly this is being turned into a story. Harry nodded. I know. They're rewriting intent, she continued. They always do. Harry leaned on the railing beside her. William didn't mean for it to go like this. Meghan looked at him. But it did. That was the truth neither could escape. A silence settled between them. Then Harry asked carefully, do you think anything actually changed? Meghan considered the question for a long moment. I think something was said that needed to be said. Harry nodded slowly. But Meghan exhaled. But I don't think silence disappears just because truth is spoken once. Harry looked at her. So what does? Meghan's answer was quiet. Consistency. That word lingered heavily in the night air, because consistency inside the royal family was never simple. Back in London, William stood alone once more in Windsor Gardens. The wind moved gently through the trees. For a brief moment, everything felt still again. But not peaceful, just paused. He thought about Harry, about Meghan, about Lilibet, about Archie, about his father, about Anne's warning that emotion always becomes expectation. And he understood something uncomfortable. This wasn't a moment of resolution. It was the beginning of a new chapter of pressure. William looked up at the night sky and quietly said to himself, this has to end better than it started. But deep down, he wasn't entirely sure it would. Thank you for watching. Write what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel.